I just did a video, just uploaded it. Sundays are really the only days I can do a video since we're, of course, doing the fulfillment for ISOM #1. And, this news happened to break, so we're going to talk about it. This is going to be a little more serious, though, in terms of its tone. This isn't going to be a laughing or giggling matter, though I know many people will laugh and giggle, certainly at it. But the news just broke, and this was exclusive by Deadline, that Comcast, who is the big mega corporation that funded, subsidized, whatever you want to call it, the G4 TV coming back. And as it says right here, Comcast division is pulling the plug on the video game centric network G4 TV, whose early incarnation in the 2000s remains a cultural touchstone for many millennials just a year after its relaunch. In a memo sent out to all employees, Spectacor CEO David Scott explained that the company's investment and efforts to revive the network just didn't gain traction. A few dozen employees and contract workers are affected by the shutdown. Comcast said it will assist with the outplacement and consider some for internal opportunities. That's not unlike what happens with corporate entities when certain sector will close down or what have you. They'll get two or three of them that they may find a fake job for, but the rest they're done. The departure over the summer of Russell Aarons, an experienced digital media exec who had been aboard G4's president in 2021, was a precursor to today's news. Her duties were added to the portfolio of Joe Marsh, a Comcast vet who has been the CEO of T1, an international esports joint venture with Korea's SK Telecom. The long story short here is that they're no longer going to be existing at all. Like, they're pulling a complete plug on it. And that was an inevitable thing. And I want people to remember the events of what happened, because this is a lesson that pretty much everybody can take. It's going to be me reiterating, but you got to always update your resume. But I'm going to reiterate a lot of what I've said previously. But for those of you that don't maybe know what happened with the whole G4 failure to really gain traction, which it doesn't look like the actual, I don't see that looking at this, that they admit what actually took place. It does say here, and this was Scott's memo to the employees. As you know, G4 was reintroduced last year to tap into the popularity of gaming. We invested to create the new G4 as an online TV destination for fans to be entertained, be inspired, yada, yada. Over the past several months, we worked hard to generate that interest in G4, but viewership is low and the network has not achieved sustainable financial results. This is certainly not what we hoped for, and as a result, we have made the very difficult decision to discontinue G4's operations, and that's effective immediately. I saw on, I think, Deadline's Twitter that one of the G4 employees, they never told us nothing. So the way he found out about the news was the way I found out about it. And that's tough. But seriously, I giggled there, but on a serious note, this is a lesson. For you guys that don't know, G4 launch was not unsuccessful initially. There was a lot of, as you would expect, they said, hey, G4 is coming back. They got, not everybody, but they got a couple of guys that were part of the old G4 of old, got them to come in, do some shows or whatever, and they relaunched. But there was this person that you can make the argument single-handedly destroyed any momentum that the company had at relaunch. Now, I will say that their model was kind of outdated. They were trying to go the kind of old, archaic model of having this uber, corporate way of presentation, right? In this studio that they're paying way too much money on. And that's not to say that you shouldn't have good production or high value production if you can't afford it. But when you have so many folks that are on YouTube talking about games, for example, that actually play those games, right? They stream them live sometimes. If people want to get content, news, reviews, what G4 was trying to implement what they did before, though to a lesser degree in some sense, but entering into a domain that they weren't really familiar with. And that was a part of it. But if they could have kept the momentum and produced solid content, then it would have worked. But they had this ticking time bomb by the name of Frost. And you guys know the rant that she went on, and everybody's around her clapping like seals. And we knew that was the end of whatever momentum that they had, right? Because she's going on some rant about sexism in gaming. And nobody's trying to hear any of that crap that she's talking about. And the network, it was one thing for her as an isolated person to have her individual views. But as a network, they were co-signing it, promoting it, and all that stuff. And it seemed like a slap in the face to a lot of would-be supporters, but now you've basically dropped this nugget that, okay, this is going to be what we've expected from modern day kind of Hollywood, modern day entertainment, and people don't go to that, and certainly didn't go to G4 for a lot of what you are sitting there talking about. And I knew once that happened, we all did, that killed any momentum that they had. And you consider the actual model, it's not sustainable from a financial perspective, because you know they're putting in way more money than they're actually going to be able to get back. So it killed the enthusiasm at the prime time when you, because, you know, they say first impressions, though, I get it, it's a relaunch, but that's so important, right? You came out, you had a bunch of enthusiastic people, and then that crap happened, like right almost, you know, what, a month or so into the relaunch, and then bam, you drop that, you promote it, you co-sign it, you got your executives co-signing it. Nobody wants to be a part of this, and that killed any enthusiasm that they had. But you backed her. You backed her, Frost, who has a history of going on this social justice sort of tirades and all that. It's not lucrative, and this is the only way that it can be. And they couldn't make it work. So it was going to fail. And what I mean by that is that regular folks certainly couldn't do that. You couldn't come on the scene promoting this kind of garbage and talking about that and actually have an audience of people that want to actually pay money for it. Even the people that claim to co-sign you and retweet you. Oh, yes, Queen Slay. They're not actually purchasers. They're not actually viewers. They're not actually customers of your product that you produce. They're not actually enthusiastic about it. They just like, oh, hey, maybe it's G4 perpetuating what it is that what I believe in social politically. But outside of that, nobody cares. Okay. So they had to pull of money from the Comcast of the world, which a regular Joe Blow does not have. And that would have made it somewhat able to exist for a longer extended period of time. But it was not sustainable. And I knew once they killed their enthusiasm, this thing was gone. But the lesson to take from this, it doesn't really matter where you're from or what side of the aisle. Guys, we got WB laying off all these employees. We're hearing this from various entertainment companies. People put up with that garbage for a period of time, and it's mainly because you already had them baked in as an audience. But you betray them. You can do it. You can lay an egg once, twice, 3 times maybe. When you have a repeated kind of theme here, right? And now we've grown to expect it. So people, as soon as they sniff it out, they're like, I don't want anything to do with that. They're out. And you can't get them back. People aren't generally interested in your product. This is not, look, man, that is not a reliable audience, man. People that want to hear you go on some rant, you're freaky talking about games and you going on some tirade about something else. People that want to hear that probably aren't interested in your product at all. They may be interested in your views, but they're not actually interested in your product. But people aren't gravitating towards that, especially entertainment, which for a lot of people is escapism. They don't want that stuff, right? And they've shown you now over the last few years, right, that they're done. I advise you to get out while you can, because if these mega corporations are going to continue to think that audience is some audience that's worth pursuing, though they're way louder on the internet than what they actually are in terms of, okay, that loud internet folk ain't going to reach in their pockets and actually buy a product. It ain't happening. But looking at those guys, man, I'm telling you, if if you are within the entertainment industry and you're under that thumb of that like kind of mega mainstream corporate way of doing things, or you're just going through the motions and kind of co-signing what the social justice left wants you to co-sign, I'd advise that while you can, you stop, because it's going to have you ending up, jobless and or broke. Okay. People aren't actually into this stuff. A lot of people pretend to like it on the internet, but you see over a period of time when you guys have to, these guys actually have to put up, these folks are insulting folks whose money they rely upon. And you can only do that. A lot of folk ain't into that, but you can get away with it for a short term. But for the long term, people at some point are going to be, if I can turn around from like, let's say Marvel or DC and say, look, I'm done with this damn company, then you know that there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions perhaps of people that are like, you know what? Nah, bro. I put up with this for too long. We're done here. And folks are sitting here gravitating towards the alternatives because it ain't about perpetuating the opposite or what they feel is the opposite politically. It's just about, hey, man, just give us some solid material and don't hate your customers. And for whatever reason, these corporate entities have listened to the blue hair weirdos that are coming out of I guess, college. And they're saying, hey, this is the audience that you want. They are, they're the enthusiastic. This is who you need to go after. Y'all going after that audience, cool. That audience going to leave y'all broke, man. I'm trying to tell you, stop while you can. Get out while you can if you do work for them, because I know you're miserable. And y'all see the writing on the wall. Now, there will be some companies that are smart enough to try to pivot, and then they're going to try to pretend like they never was on this side. But for those of you who are working for these studios or whatever it is, and you see them not changing, I would highly advise that you get out while you can, because you're going to end up jobless. Be actively looking for something that's all alternative. You're miserable anyway. You might as well try to look for something that you can be happy and don't feel disgusting at producing content for, because you know the direction that it's going in. They can hot side, they can knock us all they want. All these people that make YouTube videos talking about this crap, they hate y'all, they hate me. I'm part of that group that they throw in there every now and then saying that we suck, we're hate tubers, hate mongers, and rage baiters, or whatever nonsensical terms that they use, when really all we're doing is saying what's on our mind, and what's our mind, or at least our similar view, is shared upon a lot of different people, which is why that message has resonated with so many folks. And I know these guys like to believe that they are actually the majority, but they're not. The only reason you've been able to get away with this is because you've been able to utilize products, brands, companies that have a baked in audience, and sometimes that have been built upon for decades, which is why you see folks detach themselves from the mainstream and they try to, put out that same old nonsense. And they often end up broke. How many times have we covered on this channel putting out these weird comic books, and these fools is begging for money? Like literally, like, hey man, I'm having a rough month. Please buy my weird social justice comic. And the folks retweeting them all day, patting them on the back, ain't showing up to purchase the product because they not actually into it. It's the worst demographic. It's the most unreliable demographic, and companies are having to find out the hard way. And yeah, Comcast, the executives are fine. They're going to move on to the next thing or whatever it is that they're going to do. But those folks who thought they were about to be part of something are now going to have to look for a new job. G4, Frost might have single-handedly destroyed this company. Maybe not single-handedly, because they had let's say this, the fork in the road was when she went on that rant. Even if you aired it, right? If they came out as a company and said, all right, this ain't what this is going to be about, you know what I mean? And probably let her go then, because they ended up doing it anyway, and they let her go, then that would have been a message to everybody else that, oh, okay, they're not putting up with this. This is actually just going to be about games. It's going to be about this kind of entertainment or whatever it is that we're doing. All right, cool. Y'all would have been That would have been a way to salvage it. Not to say that it would have sat well with so many people. You still would have turned a lot of folks off, but that would have been your way to salvage. They took the wrongful position by co-signing that helpful, and now look at what it got you. You fired her. It was too late. Too late. Should be a lesson to you all.